That is when stock index futures, stock index options, stock options and a single stock futures all expire. That's quite a mouthful if you ask me. According to the market operators, this event takes place 4 times a year. The first time is on the 3rd Friday of March, the second is in June, the third is in September, and finally in December. Let's take a look at those numbers. It's a sea of red across board. The Dow Jones Industrial Average actually plunged more than 180 points. That's 1.19% off to end the week at 15,451.09 points. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq also closed sharply lower, slipping by 0.72 and 0.39% respectively. A strong domestic and foreign demand boosted the Purchasing Managers Index of small and medium-sized firms in China to a 6-month high of 51.2% in September, and this affected Asian equities, which closed mixed today. The Nikkei 225 closed 0.16% lower to finish at 14,742.42. The Shanghai Composite Index rose to a 1-week high of 2,220.64. Hong Kong's key index is down 0.75% to 23,324.47. Let's cross over to the European burst now, and we have mixed numbers as well. The FTSE 100 is down 0.09% to 6,590.18. The DAX is up 0.15% to 8,688.68, and the CAC 40 is also trending in positive territory. It's up 0.27% to 4,213.21. Well, enough of the numbers now. The rapid growth in internet technology has brought with it unlimited opportunities for several industrial innovations, among which is electronic commerce, or popularly called e-commerce. Now, what is e-commerce and what are the challenges facing it? How can this drive sustain the development in line with the federal government's Vision 2020? All this and more will form the basis of our conversation today, and I'll be joined by the CEO of Solomon Hunt Limited, Tobina Okoli. Please join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the first edition of the Week of Business Morning on Channels Television. Well, today on the program, we're going to be focusing on e-commerce in Nigeria, and I'll be joined by the CEO of Solomon Hunt Limited, Tobina Okoli. Thank you so much, Tobina, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a phenomenon that I know that's been around for a while, but could you just tell us what the electronic commerce is, or what everybody knows as e-commerce?
Okay, let's start from first principles. What is commerce? Commerce essentially is the buying and selling of goods. So if you add E to it, which is electronic, it means buying and selling of goods over electronic platforms. when e-commerce started, it started over telephones. People would watch TV or read a magazine. They see a good they want to buy. They call the retailer or the supplier and get it themselves. But now in the 21st century, the internet is the prevalent platform. So the telephone orders have taken the back seat, and e-commerce now is done over the internet. So in summary, e-commerce is the buying and selling of goods over the internet.
Oh, okay. So now, what do you think about the growth of e-commerce here in Nigeria?
Well, you see, growth is a tricky thing. If you're talking of the number of e-commerce practitioners, the growth has been astronomical. Talking to you now, e-commerce retailers, there are several branches of e-commerce, but for the popular ones that we know e-commerce retailing is what most people call e-commerce. So for that, you have over, if I'm not mistaken, over 120, 150.
But what I think I should have asked you first of all, when did we actually begin to accept it here in Nigeria? That's e-commerce. That's not the using of telephone now to conduct transactions. But when did we actually begin to accept it here in Nigeria?
Okay, well, let me describe e-commerce a little so you have an idea of how long it's been in Nigeria for. A major hallmark of e-commerce are the two A's. You can order anywhere and at any time. So regardless of the time of the day, you can order at night, over the weekends, you can do e-commerce transactions. Now from anywhere in the world, you can call in from America, from Asia, and do business in Nigeria. So the question now is, how long have people been using telephones to make calls and order for goods? It's almost as long as the telephones and as long as the internet has been in Nigeria. But when you talk about and another thing I need to explain is, when you talk about pure play e-commerce and brick and mortar e-commerce, I'll explain. In e-commerce, you have two types of companies. You have companies that are doing regular commerce. You have companies that maybe have shops, electronics sellers, or companies that sell goods in general. Now, when they get websites online and you can order their goods online, that is e-commerce. So for those guys, they've been around for as long as commerce has been done in Nigeria.
So when did they start to gain ground here in Nigeria?
But now, the people I'm sure you're talking about are the pure play e-commerce players. These are guys that don't have shops. The companies were set up on the internet. And if you talk about when those companies started getting traction, I would say in the mid-2000s. That's when these companies came on board. But in the past 3-4 years, there has been, especially in the past, I'd say in the past 2 years, the e-commerce revolution has taken off big time.
But how much has this, been able to profit the economy? Because we know that, these people are in it to make profits. But how much has this translated into the economy?
As at the end of 2012, we read reports that they've done over 75 billion. That's
to the economy of what themselves?
No, in transactions, and definitely that is economic activity. Now, from the reports we've gotten, we don't know if that is cumulative from when e-commerce started, or that was just for the year 2012. But that's still cumulative or not. That's still a heavy figure, and in 2015 it is projected to go up to 150 billion. So when you talk about economic impact, I think it's very considerable.
Okay, so now let's look at the social media. We know that we have that in full force these days. Everybody is on one of those platforms or the other. How much role does the social media play in e-commerce?
It plays a major role. It plays a major role. Social media plays a major role in business. Even banks, even companies that don't necessarily do e-commerce must have social media presence. So social media is major. I'd say what you would say has even affected e-commerce growth is internet access. The fact that a lot of people can access the internet from their mobile phones or with their mobile phones has led to e-commerce going skyrocketing. So I think the fact that you have over 110 million lines in the country, and about 30 or 40% of those are smartphones that are hooked to the internet, the e-commerce potential or the e-commerce traction has been very considerable.
Now, is this limited to a certain demography, as in age range now, or it's spread across the board for everybody who owns a mobile phone that has internet access? prefer to do online shopping that's using